have mercy, look at how the time goes.
And welcome everybody to this episode of the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. I am your host, John Allen. And today I have a rather interesting guest, somebody that I've been looking forward to speaking to for a couple of weeks now. This gentleman is Kurios I. Hello there. Hi, Kurios.
Hey, John.
Hi.
How you doing? It's Kurios.
Kurios, I'm sorry, excuse me, Kurios.
C-O-R-E, core.
C-O-R-E, yeah, Kurios.
Or core, or like cure, like you're going to be cured.
Yeah.
Kurios I.
Kurios I, but sorry about that. Kurios I, everybody. Well, welcome to the podcast. I am very glad to be speaking with you. I think you are a very interesting gentleman. You're living a very interesting life, and to me, the biggest thing that I know of that you're doing is you are a presidential candidate for the presidential race in the United States.
Yes. Well, I'm trying to be.
Tell us about that.
I got the candidate number, and I got everything going up there at the Federal Elections Commissions. They seem to be quite all right to pick up all sort of PDFs and paperwork from the finances area, but they weren't able to get my paperwork in for the candidacy. The paperwork is there. I got the tracking number. They did receive it as a PDF, though, which is odd because these people received the PDF, but when I get the voters for like Texas, or I think this was Missouri, when I talked to Missouri about getting the voter registration and get it on the ballot for them, they don't take PDFs, high quality PDF images, but I could fax it.
I see.
So I can get all these votes, and they'll fill out this paperwork, and I'm going to have a high quality scan PDFs to me of all the documents, and to get in registered so people can vote for me. And then we'll have to fax it, I guess, across the world. I mean, the only people that uses a fax machine is government. I mean, if you know anybody that has a fax machine, they're fascists.
Only fascists use fax machines.
They're out. No one else. The only way that you would have one is for government. I have to call this online place to send a PDF to a fax to some sort of any government. No real normal businessman ever uses a fax machine. It's ridiculous.
Now,
1970.
Let me ask you this now. If I understand correctly, there are some administrative issues, some paperwork issues that have to be resolved before you have an official candidacy for the presidency of the United States. Is that correct?
Not that I know of. I don't think so. I'm pretty much a candidate right now. I have a candidacy.
Okay.
I'm up there. You can write me in. It's the ballot where they vote.
Okay. Now, how does that work to have an official candidacy for presidency? I don't know too much about that, but is there a certain amount of signatures you have to have? Don't you have to show
Yes.
a certain amount of backing of potential voters before you can have a candidacy?
No.
Okay.
You just need to sign up. It was I hate paperwork. I just can't stand paperwork.
Wow.
And I did fill it out and send it up there for the U.S. Presidency. But it's the states. Each state is different.
Okay.
And for Texas, I need, was it 60,000 or 90 or 600,000 or 60,000 or 900,000? I have it out here, but it's a lot of signatures. And that's just to get on the ballot.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Okay, yeah. So you can have
just write in my name.
Kurios. I see.
But I'm working really hard to get all these at least the PDFs ready to getting on the ballots, because that's really important for me, is to actually get on the ballot. And what I've done is I've started with Texas, and I've got the paperwork, scanned it up to the internet on a Google Drive.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to need is someone to download this, and it has 15 spaces. We'll need the name, address, voter user ID, signature, and 15 of them. Each page is going to be 15, so one person downloads it, gets 15 names, email it to me to post@kurioscabinet.com.
Spell Kurios for people so they make sure they get that right.
Kurios, Kurios. Cabinet, CABIN, Kurios Cabinet. Post at Kurios Cabinet is what I'm receiving my email at right now for the candidacy. POST.
Okay.
I started out in Missouri because I have some family in Missouri, or my second state is Missouri, because I figured I'd at least get another couple votes up there.
Okay. Now you're based in Texas right now, correct?
I'm on the edge of Houston.
You're on the edge of Houston,
right near Katy.
Okay. What kind of a background do you have? Do you have any kind of a political background at all as a politician on a local level, maybe? Or
No. Oh, yes. Actually, about a decade ago, I tried for a few years to get on with the grassroots level. I was active around 2014, 2013 with the Republicans. But with Republicans and Democrats, it's just one gang against the other. They have no ideas. As long as you stick with the gangs,
yes,
they're good.
Yeah, it's that gang mentality.
So
yeah,
I don't do gang mentality. It didn't last very long.
Okay, so you're not a Republican, you're not a Democrat. What are you running as? Have you labeled yourself as an independent then?
I'm going as an independent. Yes, I'm signing up as an independent, and my I guess my politics is based on individualism, which is objectivism written by created by Ayn Rand, and her intellectual heir, Dr. Leonard Peikoff. He was my philosophical professor.
Okay.
I spent over decades studying, not directly underneath him, but his works. I've met him a few times. And so my philosophy, as far as I can tell, is, well, not as far as I can tell, my philosophy is objectivism. I'm an honest man.
Okay. So you believe in a government that is more practical rather than ideological. In other words, a way of
laissez-faire capitalism. It's practical, but I don't want to be established as pragmatic.
Okay.
Because I'll describe it to you.
Please.
Laissez-faire capitalism.
Please.
It's often referred to as honest capitalism, but that's just, because people don't know how to define their terms.
Okay.
But with laissez-faire capitalism, there's three parts of government. Let me see if I'm trying to talk to you, and I'm doing the Facebook Live.
Right.
And first time I've done it. I don't think anybody's watching or anything, but maybe later. But anyway, so I can actually talk to you.
Right.
So yeah, okay. Laissez-faire capitalism. You have three parts of government, and this is what the government needs to do. You have police. They protect me from you, you from me. And they go after the bad guys when they come and mess with me or you.
Right.
They are our protectors. They're not on frontline protectors. They can't sit on my shoulder. So, although I don't, so in Texas, you have the right to carry to protect yourself.
Yes.
And a lot of good states have the right to protect yourself because, number one, it's you. It's you, your life. You have to take care of it. You can't get in trouble and say, hey, hold on, bad guy.
Exactly. I agree with you on that point. And
then you have the courts, which currently we don't have any courts. Just kind of barely sort of have courts right now. The courts are, we can have everything else. My lawnmower's outside, my HOA, can mow the lawn. But apparently courts are not very, not necessary. So they closed down all the courts in the United States for the flu.
You're talking about now in this, in these days of this virus and isolation and whatnot.
This amusing flu that everybody is terrified of. Oh, but anyway, the courts will protect us. When me and you have a contract and, we're working together and somehow we have a disagreement. We can both have an honest disagreement and still need the courts to mediate between us.
Sure.
And the courts are, they protect documents and, our rights, our property. They're basically our front line to protect us from the police or from other people and everything else. And the third thing that we need are military.
Okay. Let me just ask you a question about the courts. You're not saying that we don't need courts. Quite the opposite. You're saying that we do need them, but there is an absence of them now in these days of isolation and quarantine and whatnot. And So what do you think should be done about that? I mean, how can a fully functioning court system correlate with the need for a certain degree of isolation and social distancing?
Oh, well, I completely disagree with how with this need. That word right there is essential. Need. There is no need for social isolation and distancing. That is what the propaganda is that you hear constantly because you're not wearing ear protection from the government propaganda. You hear this constantly, and that's what creates the mass hysteria. It's the flu. It's the cold. You raised in it, and when you get a cold, you stay inside. If you have a family, you actually need 10 years or 8 years ago, when I was married, she brought home the cold from her work, and after I got it, she got it again, and we had to do self-quarantine ourselves in our own house.
Right.
I didn't have to call the government and say, "Hey, truck, can you quarantine the entire world?" Because me and my wife, can't keep from spreading the flu from each other.
So
the
now
government has no right to stick guns into my head and your head, anybody's head in the world, and say, "Stay home."
Is it not a, and I'm not a medical professional, but what they are saying is that, yes, this is the flu. I take away the word just. It's not just the flu. And that they're saying that it is a flu type virus that is a lot more contagious than a so-called normal flu virus. So you don't...
I really don't give a bad word for that.
You're saying you can cuss if you want to on my podcast.
I'm sorry.
You can cuss. Go ahead.
I got to not to. I have to try not to.
Okay, yeah.
Because
yeah, I understand. Yeah.
I'm in the Marine Corps, and I've been beat a few times because I cuss.
I see.
I've won a few and I lost a few.
There you go.
But I still cuss.
Okay, yeah, good.
It's a lot easier for me to not regulate the stuff that comes out of my mouth and to sit there and say, "Oh, your pretty little ears are going to get, irritated from the words." If you don't, I had a girl come across the street from me. I was complaining about her dog, so she came across my yard after I asked to stop barking, and she started hollering at me. "Why are you telling my dog likes to bark?" And I said, "Your dog's an inanimate doesn't like anything. You taught him to bark."
I see. Yeah.
And then she starts getting mad at me that I'm cussing. And I was like, "Here, I'll trade you, lady. You came over to my yard. You want to complain about me complaining about your dog barking. You're going to have to listen to me cuss because I'll trade you." I told her I'd trade you. I said, "I won't cuss at you if you don't bark at me." So the police at me.
So to go back to the government guidelines, so to speak.
I still haven't hit the military yet. There are 3 parts.
Go back to that. Yeah, you mentioned the police, the courts, and the military. Now, tell us.
And the military. The military is how we protect ourselves from our foreign enemies. Our location, however, we don't have foreign enemies, so we just make ourselves a nuisance. Well, unless you're a dictator like Mussolini or Hitler back time in Japan, in which we had to step in and say no.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we just kind of be buddy with them and share the flu with them, and call tariffs and tweet with them.
So when you say
don't do that with dictators, you tell them to stop.
So when you say we don't have a foreign enemy, we
had to invent one. It's called the sneeze.
Well, when you say we don't have a foreign enemy, you wouldn't look at China or Russia or North Korea or Iran as foreign enemies.
Well, North Korea was put in place by Carter. You have millions and millions of suffering stars and peoples for decades, and all of these people, he stopped the war. Okay, everybody's freaking starving and dying. You have pictures of kids in the road inside of South Korea starving to death, and people love Carter because he stopped the war, and all these people are dying. They don't understand, I guess, the cause and relationship of dictators cause death.
What year was that when Carter...
don't tell me those years. That was in the 70s, I believe, 69 or 70 when Carter...
He was president before Reagan, which was 1980. Reagan. Yeah, no. So
Reagan got involved. They get rid of all the bad guys. Started to be nice again.
There are certain political factions who would argue that it would be better to build up, for example, North Korea, build them up economically, and that would give North Korea the opportunity to be a contributing partner in the world. Yeah,
so in the world economy. Reward bad guys and help them be better bad guys by giving them more. We already did that once. That was called Iran and Saudi Arabia when they nationalized our oil. And then we said, oh, sorry, you can keep our companies, our individual private citizens' business.
So what would be your political...
We just gave them free money for the next 50 years. And now we saw, and then, World Trade Center.
So what would be your political stance then with a nation such as North Korea? What would be your political stance? How would you handle that issue?
Well, I don't think they're bothering me right now.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
They're starving each other.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they're actually going to starting a war or trying to, throw rocks at the embassy and hurt United States citizens. My political view of North Korea, it would be to just leave them alone. It's none of my business.
So that is a very isolationist stance. In other words, America should worry about herself.
If they start causing trouble with American citizens, would be what the president has to step in and say, North Korea, these are American citizens, and then the president would we would need to step in. But unless they're being antagonistic and causing trouble, they can go be a dictatorship in their little world and starve their citizens if they want.
I understand that to a certain extent, but what about their missile launches? Isn't that a provocation? Do you see that as a provocation? They're missile launches. They're testing missiles. They're launching them into the ocean there between the Koreas and Japan. These missiles are coming towards Japan.
They just South Korea, if they wanted to take care of North Korea, they go up there and just get rid of them. The reason why they're standing back and not doing anything is because the United States is just kind of in the way in protecting these people in North Korea starving and dying in the funny haircuts.
So you don't see, you wouldn't consider their missile launches as a provocation. You would kind of see that just as an act of petulance that really has no.
If they send a missile to somebody, anybody in that world is going to knock North Korea off the map. They're throwing them off in the water, saying, "Hey, look, we got these big bombs. If they hurt somebody, I'm pretty sure even Trump will step on him."
Yeah, I don't know. They got that bromance thing going there. Who knows what?
Do they really have it? I haven't been. He has been buddy with a lot of dictatorships.
He seems to admire him.
He's a fascist. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, if that's the case, he's a. Well, so that's the reason why he's got to go. Fascists don't need to be in charge of America. Freedom. This,
agree 100%.
I think someone was saying about this being the land of the free and the home of the brave.
I agree 100%.
The land of people wrapped up in quarantine toilet paper and afraid of the people and frightened of the sneeze and butterfly bites.
How many people die of the flu yearly? I'm not sure the numbers, but
I'm sure there's more people dying in car wrecks. We don't sit in quarantine because people dying in car wrecks.
No, we don't.
More people dying and freaking crossing the street, getting hit by lightning. No, that's probably not that many, but anything can come up with more people dying than the flu.
So under your presidency, in a situation like this, there would be no quarantine, nothing like what we're seeing today. But would you do anything at all to take a hold on this situation? Would you would just kind of let it run its course as any other flu
People
season?
have a free right to associate with groups. Now, if there is a medical group that doesn't have the word Center of Human Control as the title, like we do right now, Human Disease Control, Center of Disease
Center
Control,
for Disease Control,
disease.
Yeah.
To control diseases, they define as a disease anything that they can define as a disease. They have to control it. To control any diseases, they have to control humans. So this entire department is the center of controlling humans, and they're doing a pretty good job of it. Everybody's hiding around, got their hands all bound, all nice and soft and cuddly, watching Netflix.
How bad would a pandemic have to affect the United States of America in order for...
Well, first it can't be the flu. If I can't get it when I go into kindergarten class, it's not going to. And
Yeah,
a kid,
let me ask.
can walk home and sniffle. It can't be the flu. It has to be.
Let me ask this question though.
It would be polio.
Let me ask
if
this.
we get a case of polio, I think the president can step in, and everybody can say, "Hey, quarantine," because this is deadly. But it's gone.
Because
and it's not the flu. This is sniffles.
The question I was going to ask was this: how bad? No, that's okay. The question was going to be, how bad would an epidemic or a pandemic have to affect the United States of America under your presidency before you would do something to control? How bad would it have to get before?
It wouldn't. The thing is, what is it? The World Health Organization came up there and was like, 2.2 million people are probably going to die from this sneeze. Well, there's been people that died typically from mass hysteria going, hey, I'm going to die. I got the flu. I'm sick and I'm going to die. I'm going to be a statistic. And people choose to die. They listen to the stories that get played and they choose to visualize their death and they die. People actually do have immune compromise, and these are the 1% that are actually needing to wear the Ghostbusters suits and protect themselves. Those are the people. The thing is, this entire pandemic thing is sacrificing 99.99% of the healthy world. Well, actually, the world's not that healthy because they've been listening to these medical freaks, but they're sacrificing the entire world for less than 1% of a few people who can actually stay home and take care of themselves to get the flu. So why?
See.
I mean, that's the entire world. The entire focus is the sacrifice. It's either sacrificing you for me or me for you. And I don't like sacrifice. I don't sacrifice you. I don't sacrifice me. I don't let my friends sacrifice each other, or they won't be my friends. And this entire pandemic of mass hysteria is nothing but scaring people up from the cold and flu, because you can't tell the difference between the cold and the flu.
So right now I just looked it up as we're talking here. Right now, worldwide, there's 2,940,755 coronavirus deaths.
Yeah. Oh, they're going to come up with more too, because if I get in a car wreck and I have a cold, I died of the flu, not because my head was cut off.
So you think governments are? Do you think the United States government? Do you think the United States government is manipulating the statistics then?
Oh no. Well, the people are manipulating the statistics. The statistics is ridiculous. The thing is, it doesn't matter. Statistics are numbers. It's comparing a whole bunch. Let's just imagine if we were sitting in a room, there's a whole bunch of people in white coats, and for years we've been studying the flu. And the flu, the viruses, they're groups. It's not just one virus, and this is a script of a virus, and it has 100 lines. It's a group. They're all a little bit different, and they all, these 1,000 different types of viruses, bacteria is going to be this particular flu. And they've been watching these viruses and then pushing these harmful vaccines for people for decades. So they've been pushing it, and people have been taking it and trying to get scared and, oh my God, it's flu season. Typically in flu season, 100 years ago, you just, continue to stay healthy, get in the sun, eat vegetables and, the lettuce and anything you need to do healthy. Now I had someone told me, my husband's always been so healthy. He every time he gets something, he goes to the doctor and gets checked up and does exactly what the doctor says.
Yeah.
But the doctors don't know anything about health. They're taught medical science, medical tools. They're taught about statistics and all these drugs that they come out there. But to actually be healthy, these people, they look on the edge of, dying of a heart attack themselves. And they're saying, and they're telling people, it doesn't matter what you eat. Here, eat these pills.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I mean, you can take the either. What's a contradiction right there?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I do believe that a lot of drugs, certain drugs, are pushed on people when the solution could be.
I've only been to the doctor. Let's see, about 10 years ago. In most of my life, I've never actually. I take my cup of serenity or my cup of sovereignty with me when I go talk to a doctor. I have some particular items that I need to have tested or I'm curious about, and I go to the doctor and I get these tests done and I get away from them as fast as possible.
Okay.
And because they know only what they're taught, and they have so much, the fundamentals are flawed in their schools. They're still taught like the hypothesis of DNA. Like people want to believe that they're a car, that the DNA is fixed, and that the DNA writes that you're going to live 69.3 years old.
Yeah.
And if you smoke, you're only going to live 68 years. So why matter about smoking? You can smoke all your life and do unhealthy things, and then when the doctor says, "Oh, you're getting sick," you can stop smoking. But you've already got 70, 50 years, 30 years of bad disease on you. You're not, you've already ruined your body, and you're going to die. So, that's what you want to. That's not pro-life here on Earth. If you want to live on Earth, and you want to live happy, long, prosperous, you need to take care of your body. Now, you don't need to paint your fingernails, but you're going to have to take care of your fingers.
Sure.
You're going to have to take care of your toes, and so you don't get fungus.
Sure.
Because all these little things, they add up. Now, if you have rotten toenails and you cut your foot and you're old and you go to bed and that fungus and the dirty feet gets in that leg, your leg gets infected, and you wake up and you're going to die because you're 65 years old and you haven't been taking care of yourself. Now, another person who works in the garden cuts themselves, gets some, let's even try the thieves oil. They clean it up. They put the thieves oil on it, but the doctors, herbs don't matter. But even though if you go look on the studies, that does help.
Sure.
There are evidence that these things do
Absolutely.
help. I mean, I wouldn't get, now if that man waits 2 weeks and all of a sudden his leg is bleeding and pus coming out and he wants to dump thieves oil on it, okay, that's ridiculous. It's not going to help.
Right.
That's when you go to the doctor and they use these nuclear bombs of antibiotics. Hopefully, that nuclear bomb of antibiotics will kill it.
Well,
A healthy person will fix it right away. Will keep his toes clean, keep his feet clean, keep his body clean, his skin healthy, everything he wants to do here on Earth. So when he cuts himself, when he has some sort of damage, if he gets in a car wreck, if he loses a loved one that he had for 18 years, it was so close to him, his health will keep him strong and founded. So those few weeks and months will pass and he'll be able to grow again and find new values. You have to.
Sure. I would imagine that a healthy person and a non-healthy person, if they both get the same type of injury, that healthy person will recover quicker than the unhealthy person.
Two people with the same injuries are going to have two different reactions. The healthy, if one's an alcoholic,
exactly,
you can have an easy injury and die.
Exactly. That's my point.
If the one has a bad, yeah,
that's my point. But within all of that, you do see that there is a place for doctors. There is a place for medicine. But you think it's just been that authority that the medicinal world has been misused and has been applied in unethical ways on our society? Or
there's a few different flaws. First, the education of the doctors. They're highly educated in what the pharmaceutical industry, who is in fascist with the government. Now you have the doctors who are uneducated or miseducated. They're taught to use and abuse the argument from authority.
Well, the perfect example is the opiate crisis in America. People are being over-medicated with these pain medications, and it's led to a situation where addiction to opiates is out of control.
It's nothing out of control. Just leave people alone. In any area that we have in our lives that we have given freedom, everywhere it has become better. I think there was a study in Germany that they removed all the lights and all the signs and everything and all the crosswalk things in the city, and all of a sudden there was no accidents. There was no traffic. The traffic went away, and because there weren't traffic keepers, authorities who enforcers, traffic enforcers. First, they nationalized our roads were private for a long time, but the government nationalized it because for whatever reason.
Yeah, the interstate, the interstate system that was built up.
That was a horrible thing too.
You think so? Look what it. You don't think
infrastructure? I'm anti-infrastructure. And
you don't think that
has no right to steal property.
Yeah, but okay, yeah, I agree. I think I'd be pretty pissed if they told me my property had to disappear because they want to build
their properties that say, hey, here's my gun. We're the government. You're going to move because we want to make this huge streak of concrete across the road.
So the advancement,
instead of being
the advancements
highway robbers.
So the advancement that our interstate system, for example, has made when it comes to transportation of goods and services to people, you don't think that was worth it?
They didn't help anything. They made things worse.
How so?
We would have, first we had railroad tracks going across our area. That was okay. They used the government to get those, and those were our heart, our blood pulsing across the United States was when we were able to get those train tracks across there. But then the government had, started people going, people are getting better and some worse, and they're always trying to get easy things. And so people were trying to get the government to help them get their own business started in train tracks. And so as the government stayed in there, people started getting the ferries across the rivers and the bridges. People were having to get ferries. They were owning the bridge, and we're having to get ferries to cross the bridge, cross the rivers. And that's good. But then the government got involved with the ferries. This is Zeus, by the way.
Yeah, I see that. For my listeners who don't see the video, you're holding a ferret. Look at that little guy. Hey, Zeus.
Zeus with the loose caboose. He's just got this, he's a ferret.
Look at that little guy. So
it's all wrong. All these roads it's infrastructure, and the government has no thing about infrastructure because in 1950s when we started getting all the time philosophy over, and we started being taken over in the 1950s, and our technology stopped. There's no reason for me to be driving a car with technology from the 1950s. I should be just like the Jetsons and getting in my car in my garage, flying up before I even into my driveway, and then levitating up in houses and going around there with no roads, just like in Back to the Future. But you know what? We have government regulations from the 1970s that says this gas tank can't be at the end of the, where it is. Well, we learned that, and no one in the car industry is going to make that mistake again because of one court case. It could have just stayed as one court case with that Pinto or something with the exploding.
But wouldn't you say that there have been?
The government has stopped. And over the years, we have stayed with these weird cars, these old cars, and the only difference between one car and the next basically is the color. That's because of governments. That's not because of lack of technology. I have plugs in my house that are GTEs or some sort of stickers on them because of the government regulation. I don't want AC in my house. I want DC. I want to be able to plug DC. It's safer. It's healthier.
But isn't a certain amount
because of government?
But isn't a certain amount of government regulation necessary for the good of society? Because if you had
let me understand this thing what regulation is. That's fascism, by the way. Regulation is. Do I have the right to come up to you and tell you that you can't do this? Can I tell you to do this?
No.
Okay, so how is it that just because you voted in there or a group of people came up and says you need to have a 3-prong plug with this and a GTE certification sticker in your house? Do I have the right to make you do that? So how does the government get the right? Because they have guns.
I can give you an example.
Make me do that.
I don't want too much government overreach either. I don't want them in my face. But here's the thing. I can just give you an example. My question isn't a certain amount of government regulation necessary to make society go smoothly? For example, I can put it on a very basic. You
don't have the right to make anybody.
Let me ask a question though. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. I can put it on a very basic level. I'm a musician. I have guitars. I have amps. My amps and my music equipment, it's a 2-prong plug that goes into a certain electrical current. If I want to go and play some music with my friends who have a 4-pronged plug and a totally different electrical current, now all of a sudden we can't do our thing musically. That is just one example, but you could expand on that example and see how much chaos there would probably be in society.
Used the USB cable? There's 3 different ones now: the USB-A, USB-C, and USB. And even Apple Lightning cords.
Yeah.
They're awesome. And people complain. I've heard somebody complain about Apple. They're leaving Apple because they have a new, faster technology,
Yeah.
and you're having to buy a new cord. Now, I'm going to keep Apple because they're updating their technology and getting new cords and making faster and better. Now, does the government, you need to come in there and say, hey, you are evolving. Apple's timeline is 2 years. 2-year timeline. They project things further out there, but they change and they make sure that their products improve and everything. They have a 2-year timeline, and I practice the 2-year timeline.
Yeah, but that doesn't have anything to do with government.
No right for the government to come in. Those electricity plugs that you're talking about is the same thing as those cables. So what right? I mean, yeah, okay. There's an industry standards that people come around and they agree voluntarily.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. That's not really government overreach. That's just an industry standard, which kind of is controlled by the market.
That is a voluntary agreement.
It is
that means that if I don't want to use those cables, those 3 prongs or 2 prongs or USB-A cable, and I only want to use USB-C, and I only want to have DC in my house, I would have the right to do that, and I can choose to do that. But in with the government, it's illegal, and I'm breaking the law. And if anything that is illegal, you have to make things to understand that how this is important, how this regulation is. Regulations can only exist. Anything in laws can only exist if you want it to be upheld by a gun. If a cop can come in here and fit a gun to my head, and you're willing to say, yes, that cop needs to fit a gun to my head and force me to use that 2-3 prong plug or the USB-A, USB-C, if this is the way you feel, then you need to vote for somebody else, because I don't like guns pointed at my head, and I don't like guns pointed at your head. If you want to use those 2 prongs, you can go to the industry standard, keep up with that technology individually yourself, and choose yourself. Not go to the government and say, okay, we can only use USB-C from now on.
So now you've mentioned three aspects of our government. The 3 aspects that you feel are important. You mentioned the courts, you mentioned the police, and you mentioned the military. Now, we have courts, we have police, and we have military now. What would you, as a president, change? You get elected into office, what would you change with the courts? What would you change about the police? What would you change about the military?
Well, I will say no a lot. First off, the military is not world police. And second,
bring the troops home.
The U.S. police, the state police, are not military. So these police raids that people are doing, the police are pretending to be military and doing military tactics without military training. Yes, the police squads, they come around there and they wear these things. They have no training for that. You have 4 years in the Marine Corps, and you have constant training. These guys, they go put on the uniform and they're taught how to tighten it up.
Yeah.
And they go in there and they kill people's dogs and children and put guns to children's heads.
But do you see? What would I
change about the police? Let me get this one, because I'm tough on the police, and I call them the mafia in blue, and it's insulting. It's insulting to be the police, and for me, if I'm running for the president of the United States and I'm calling the police the mafia in blue, it's insulting. Yeah, and now how would I explain that? Do I apologize to these people when to say, hey, I'm calling you the mafia in blue?
Do you apologize?
I'll explain to you. This is the point. No, I'm not going to, because the police are there to protect individual rights, not violate them. And when your entire system is there violating individual rights, the police have to make a decision to uphold the law, and they have to uphold the law, and they have to violate individual rights to do this. In all these laws, you're waking up citizens as slaves. We wake up, we are violating the law. So at any point in time, these police who are to protect and serve are now having to violate and make decisions on what's going on. They don't, that's not their problem. They've talked to me and they understand. I've talked to these two police. I love my beat cops. I know about 7 or 8 of my police that are at my house, and I go to the farmers market, Urban Harvest, every Saturday, and I love that. It's my social thing, and I know those 2 police officers down there, and I like them.
Yeah,
and these police are good people. Now the traffic police, they're the new highway robbers. They used to protect us from highway robbery. Now, hold on. I'm still going. I know you got a question. Just a minute. Hold on.
Yeah.
And I keep jumping around. I'll pull it all in. The police used to protect us from highway robbery, not pull us over because you're going 85.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I move 25% faster than anybody else. Even my health is 25% healthier. If some people take 30 days to do something, it would take me about 24 to 25 days to heal from something. I'm statistically that 25% movement rate faster than the police. Now you have good, the detectives, all the police force are good people. But they have a contradiction. They have to, be able to deal with violating individual rights, protecting people's, and upholding the law. But their duty is to uphold the law. So they have to violate individual rights. And and if I'm going to change my house, they have to come in here and they're going to put me in wall. They're going to, see what they did to Waco. They're going to have to do their job.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay.
But so hold on. There's mafia in blue. Is that insult? So these people, they have to choose to be able to protect me or to uphold the law and violate my rights, or hurt me. So they're constantly in a struggle. And right now, I don't think it's moral to be a policeman. I cannot.
But what is the connection?
Because I would not be able to handle that contradiction myself.
But where's the contradiction? Why is it a contradiction, or where is the How does it become an instance of violating someone's rights if the police are protecting someone?
But the laws aren't protecting them. First off, the police don't protect, partially.
Let me give you an example.
That fly overhead. They're supposed to be like birds. You don't see them. They're supposed to stay out of the way, and they fly over us. And if I have trouble, I call them and say, "Hey, bird, there's a thug," and they come down here and they get rid of the thug.
So you don't believe in the police?
Watch out for the dead animals.
But what about the police being a visible entity in society, and that visibility is a deterrent for certain?
Preventive, and that's not their business to prevent bad actions. That's not me trying to prevent you from doing. From forcing you to do. Shooting a gun to forcing you to do. Preventive law is the most harmful laws. That's the ones that really people don't understand, is that it's not your right to prevent people from hurting themselves.
Well, so if there's
to make people better, again, it's that same word you're making people. If you're going to prevent, you are making people do what you want them to do.
So you mentioned the beat cops.
Right,
so you mentioned the beat cops. You mentioned the beat cops in your neighborhood. Those guys are out there patrolling. Are they then violating rights by being visible and actively patrolling? Because isn't the act of a police patrol preventive in itself?
No, they're in a respect, it is preventive because they are out there. But
exactly.
That's not the purpose.
The purpose is for them to just you're saying the purpose is for them to just respond when a citizen calls upon them for help
and do paperwork.
And to do paperwork.
And go get the bad guys. They can't, if they can respond fast enough. Hey, I'm on the phone and I see these thugs and they're looking at my house and they look like they're about to rob me. And the police come and they catch the thugs before, as they're breaking.
So you don't think you don't think the police should be active until the citizenry calls upon them to do something?
They can patrol.
Yeah, that's
fly around. They fly around. That's patrolling. That's the patrolling, I guess, is flying around. But they have no right to come up and say to you, you cannot pick up and throw a baseball. Now, wait, there was an example of that guy running down a beach or playing basketball. There was a kid playing basketball on a court just recently. He got fined like $1,000 or $600 because he was alone in a court, in the basketball court, playing basketball during this quarantine. And one of the replies was, "Oh, what if everybody did that? The police have to do that because what if everybody went out there?" Well, that's egalitarianism. And everybody, has you ever seen any human being? Everybody, you can't even get two people to do the same thing. Now, the egalitarianism, what is everybody does that?
Well, let me ask you this.
The reality of the fact is, there's one guy playing basketball by himself, and this police is right there. This police, he was upholding the law. He had to choose. And he chose poorly. He had to uphold the law. His orders, his duty was to go up there and harass that man, violate his individual rights. And
let me give you an example here.
Just steal his money. He was stolen.
Because I'm trying to understand your how you feel about the police and what their duty is, and then we can move on. But I just want to throw one example out there. Okay, now
I'm going to go get some water. I'm going to tell this on Facebook Live. I'm going to go get me a drink while he's talking. So y'all going to have to, listen to him for the next few minutes.
The citizenry has not called the police, but the police are aware of a drug house where drugs are being sold.
Oh, well,
Those drugs
are not supposed to be illegal. Being illegal is the violation. Is the violation of individual rights right there. So before you even continue on with that story, the flaw is already found.
And well, it's not a flaw. I wouldn't say it's a flaw. It's the fact. It's just a fact that you believe. It's just a fact that you believe that drugs should not be illegal. That's not a flaw.
It's a violation of individual. Who am I to tell you can't take Benadryl? Am I going to tell you and put a gun to my head, in your head, and say you can't take Benadryl, or you can smoke alcohol, which is or you can smoke alcohol. You can drink alcohol. That's legal. It's one of the most unhealthy, deadly, poisoning drugs out there, but that's the most legal one. And the best thing I think is the reason why it's illegal is because it hurts you. And if you feel good, you're supposed to suffer afterwards. And that's why alcohol is really liked, because you go out and party and then you got to suffer from it. Yeah. That's why, is one of the things.
Well, I think it's rather bizarre that alcohol.
If you want to enjoy yourself, get something that's an intoxicant, that's not alcohol, that makes you feel good. You can be intoxicated a little bit, enjoy your evening, wake up at 5 a.m. the next morning and go to work and feel great. Alcohol ain't going to do that. It's just going to it just destroys you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's bizarre that alcohol is okay, but marijuana is not. That's just a weird thing to me. So forget.
We're talking about this drug thing. This drug people. The police are going to have to violate the individual rights of these drug users who are probably perfectly at home, happily watching Netflix, drugged up.
Okay, so let's drop let's drop my story. Let's drop my story. Then let's drop my story about the drug house. No, the citizenry has not called the police, but the police find out that there is a pedophile ring. They have all of their proof. They might have video or computer data proving that there is a pedophile ring. When the police bust into that pedophile ring and arrest the people that are involved, is that a violation of their rights, or is that the police protecting society?
Well, that's, of course, the police protecting society. They need to be able to watch stuff like that. That's one of the things about the Zeus.
So they're stopping these pedophiles that are doing a certain amount of harm in society. But if they stop a drug ring,
most of the time,
if they stop
the Federal Bureau of Investigation has actually pushed that pornography, the baby porn, and get people in trouble, entice these people with these products. Then arrested them.
But if you put a video on someone has access to a video of a child performing sex acts, that person can choose to stop looking at it. If that person chooses to look,
they already broke the law. So they already broke the law, though.
How's that?
So the government who has allowed these things to go on there, and you're looking at a video, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, my God, she looks so young. Now there is a porn star who has gotten quite famous. I don't remember her name, but she was a porn star. She was just a very adult woman, became an adult woman for years. I think she started when she was like 16 or 15 years old.
I do believe that's Linda Lovelace you're talking about.
Is that it? And then she went on her 18th birthday. She went to her last little porn, I think. I don't know anything about it. And on her 18th birthday, and then all of her other porn became illegal. Yes. And she just made a bunch of money. And now she's, I think I've seen her. She was a very beautiful woman. But hopefully it didn't scar her so much.
So you think that police power should be drastically reduced? You believe that certain aspects of police activity is an infringement upon the civil liberties of people?
The police power is absent. The police need to have laws that don't violate their individual rights. They need to protect us.
Okay, yeah.
They need to be able to protect us. They don't need to be able to have to choose to violate. They don't need to go. That guy's duty was he had to go violate that man's right when he was playing basketball. That was his obligation. So he had to go do that. It would have been against he would have Sharby could have lost his job. But it was immoral for him to do it. So that's a concept of
Okay.
law, legal immorality. And that's what I'm saying. The Mafia Blue, you can't. I couldn't do it. And
But
I
as
know
president,
so they're good people again,
but as
who are no individual rights,
but
and you choose that every day.
but as president, would you not need a good level of mutual respect with the police force, and calling them the Mafia in Blue kind of that puts you off in a bad position, in a bad starting position when it comes to having relations with the police force. You know, the FBI, for example, you're going to have a lot of contact and close cooperation with the Justice Department as a president.
Biography. But the thing is, absolutely, it would be a struggle to have good policemen. All few of them vote for me. And even the bad policemen, Bob, can vote for me. The thing is, they will vote for me because they don't want that contradiction either.
I'm sure some would vote for you. Absolutely.
These people became police because they want to protect. They want to be good in society. They don't want to violate individual rights. That's the reason why they become police. They don't want to be Mafia in Blue, and I know it's insulting to them.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why they will vote for me, is because they know that I will do my best to make sure our laws protect individual rights.
I'm sure some would vote for you, but I also am aware of the police have a very strong union in the FOP, Fraternal Order of Police. I could imagine them.
I'm also going for the individual. I don't go for groups.
I see.
I'm going for the largest group.
I see, which is the individual. Yeah.
Individual thinking man. A man with integrity. And there's all those men in integrity in the police force. You have to be, especially like the detectives. And once you get up there, you have to be able to think. Now if they want to be the Mafia in Blue, they won't vote for me.
Now you also mentioned
I don't want them to.
You also mentioned the military. What would you change about our military structure, or perhaps in the way in which we implement our military? You kind of touched on the fact that you would you're kind of thinking, bring the troops home. We don't have any business outside of our own shores with the military. Is that correct? Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, I wouldn't. Let's see. There'd be a lot of work having to be done, getting the military kind of back where it needs to be. Do you believe we should
close? Do you believe we should close down some bases, international bases, and bring those troops home? Do we have any? Do we have any business in the Mideast, for example?
Individual context. You can't just say, I want to bring all the military. We will get rid. I would stop the world police. Now, the thing is, we have four different parts of the military. You have the Air Force, the Navy, the Army, and the Marines. The thing is, we haven't had. There's nothing that we can't do. If we wanted to take over China and get rid of those totalitarian governments in North Korea, and get good free people in there, we could do it.
We could do it militarily if we chose.
That Trump is already buddy with these dictators.
Yeah.
Because he is a dictator himself. He wants to be a dictator. He wants to continue another 4 years. He likes fascism and the attention, being on Twitter and tweeting people and things.
Well, I tell you, that's not too big of a ideological step to take when you see that he is enamored by some of these dictators. It's obvious that he admires them. So it's very disgusting, and it's a little bit scary to think that not only does he admire them, but maybe he wants to emulate them, and that's not good in our democracy.
Well, I think you can trust her now that the presidents are only going to last 8 years.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing.
Another issue is I've mentioned that when I've mentioned that I'm running for U.S. presidency, or I start commenting about stuff, people start saying that we should go into martial law. I've had that I've had a few instances where people say we need to go to martial law. That's wrong.
Pretty drastic. That's pretty drastic.
You can't. No, that's not drastic. It's dumb. Our police are the toughest and the strongest, the military and their government. There ain't no group of people, there's no martial law ever to do that. That's just ridiculous to come up with a concept that we can somehow group together and take over our government and redo it and win a government. I mean, it's against the law for our government. It's the Second Amendment for a group of people to gather with guns. Now, it's okay for an individual to group together, to go around in a group to, let's say, a mall that allows you to carry in there to protect yourself, and a whole bunch of people are going there. Now, but if I hit my Kurios gang of misfits, the Kurios misfits, and there's 20 of us, and we all put our open carry in there, our open carry guns. I don't open carry, by the way.
Okay, because I was going to ask. Okay, yeah.
I have shown my concealed carry before. These people that kind of like, oh, he's because I'm 5'7" and I weigh about 135, 140 pounds. I'm solid steel though.
Hey, you are a pretty fit guy.
You got these 300 pound people that 6'4" tall want to come around and push me along. I show them my equalizer.
Right.
I used to be able to. I used to fight them. I'm fast. I can do those, the moves and put the big guy down and everything. But I'm also about to turn 45 and I'm lazy, and I'd rather just put a bullet in it.
It's a lot less sweat.
But most of the time, the few times that I have shown it, they've kind of behaved again and treated me a little bit more with respect. But there was another point you were asking, I think, before I got to that.
I was just kind of asking about what you would do if there would be any restructuring of the military, and you answered by saying it would have to be taken on an individual basis, like closing bases and whatnot.
If there was any sort of warfare, I would use the Marines the way they were supposed to. You say now the Congress and everybody don't want to win. No one in the Congress and everything hates it when America wins. And since the 1950s, and we showed everybody that we're a sleeping tiger. Yeah. Now we're not even a purring cat. But the military, at least, will take care of us. You don't actually have to have a barbarian warrior society. You just need a good military. But again, we don't have any foreign shores. No enemies.
Yeah.
So the police or the military police, the Marines are going to be used if we have trouble. Now, if North Korea starts deciding to go into war again, I would just say, hey, I think probably the 1st Marine Division is the ones that, I'm not sure which division it is, but you just say, hey, send in a platoon of Marines and take out China. Or the Navy SEALs. I actually was training to be, my goal when I joined the military was to get into Navy SEALs.
Okay.
And I didn't make the swim. I gained like 35 pounds in boot camp and got fat. I was like in the Marine Corps.
You gained weight in Marine Corps boot camp. Oh, wow.
They made you eat so much. And I was going about the 130. I was swimming every day, and I was running, and I was working out because I was going for the Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
And I even was ready because I'm shorter than most people, and it's really harder because you as a team. But I couldn't make the team. It was awful. But anyway. But we don't have wars. There's no wars that's in there. We don't need these huge.
So when you say we don't have any enemies, can I paraphrase you by saying that we don't have any enemies that are a true threat to us militarily? Or do you mean we don't have any enemies, period? As a threat. Okay, yeah.
There's bad people. We have tons of enemies. Those people try and.
But they're not as significant.
If you wake up and you say, "I hate, Christians and Jews," that's an enemy,
right?
Because
right. But just the mere fact that someone says that doesn't mean that they're an enemy that can actually do you harm. So, the United States has enemies, but
goes in there and.
So the United States has enemies, but
typically act on it.
Right, I understand. Let me ask you this on some more.
The heroes of society are only about 1% to 3%. So there's a small group of people, and if they're the people who actually are the fanatics are the 1 or 2 to 3%.
Right.
Now, so
they're there and they can do damage, but I can't see them doing anything so significant that it's going to change the very fabric of our society. Of course, I'm not.
Well, they did. Look what they did in 2001. They did change the fabric of society. We gave them money for decades through the oil, and then they flew buildings. So then we need to change Americans, and then America attacked 2 non-combatant countries.
So then we need to change the premise then. So America does have enemies that can do significant damage. We need to change the premise that we said a few minutes ago.
That damage a long time ago either. We've let them.
Okay. Let me ask you about some domestic issues. Women's yeah, I'm just gonna flip this on you real quick. We can come back to that stuff, but I want to make sure I get this in about the domestic issues. And I guess this kind of goes along. We already talked domestically when it comes to the police force. But what can you say? What would you change, or do you feel there needs to be a change in the court system and how justice is applied? Now, I'll give you an exact premise here. The premise is that justice is applied, or I'm sorry, punishment within the court system is applied much more harshly on black men than any other demographic in America. What do you say to that? In other words, a black man gets caught with 5 grams of crack, and a white woman gets caught with 10 grams of powder cocaine. That black man is going to do more time. Or even if they both get caught with the same kind of drug, statistics will say that black man will be punished more harshly with more jail time than any other race, gender, demographic. What do you say about that?
Might be true. I don't know.
It is true, according to the statistics.
Black men are argument from ignorance. Ignorance. Anybody who ever comes up to me and starts saying it's statistics, that's just arguing from ignorance. The thing is, but
don't you think there's any value in statistics?
You can understand why. No, hold on. Statistics can point you in the right direction, but they don't give you any actual knowledge. But if you're going to use these statistics, and let's see if they can point us in the right directions. And I'm going to assume that this statistic is true.
Yeah.
Let's say that for every 4 people that are arrested, I don't know. Let's just say it's true and go on there. Now, why is this true? Is it because that black people are realistically bad people?
Well, the facts.
That is not. There is no difference between the skin color. That's just a melatonin thing. It's
right.
A happenstance.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, with the help of governments, regulations and housing industries and other people grouping everybody together, getting poor education, not getting educated, the bad philosophy, the gang philosophies, the welfare. When you pay people to do nothing, you're going to get more of it. So when you subsidize poor people, they're going to be more poor because they don't.
What would you do? What would you do then to?
You're growing the bad people. So if these statistics are right, and
well, here, let me give you. Let me give you a more solid.
I support profiling.
How so?
So
why?
And the thing is, because you have to judge. You look out personally. I walk around, and I'm walking around. I used to go to bed after sunset. 8:30. Last night I went to bed just before 9, and I woke up at 6 a.m. I got 9 hours of full sleep last night. Now, but let's say I go out on a Saturday night, and in Dallas there's this place called, I don't know what it is now, how it is, but 20 years ago there's this place called Deep Ellum. And at night you can go there, you're going to get in a fight if you go in there. It was a kind of a dark area. There are clubs and people go out there and get into trouble. And I go out there, and they're right there at that party place, at this Deep Ellum. Statistically speaking, people are going to get in trouble.
Okay.
So if you go there, there's likely you're 100% more likely to get robbed, get pushed, get a drunk guy get in a fight with you, than if you go at 2 p.m. in the afternoon to the mall and go to the Apple store. So now it's not that these people at night are black, but it's dark. They're partying. They're intoxicated. You have all this different context that, statistically speaking, because of all of this different context, you're likely to get hurt, or these people are likely statistically to get hurt. Now, it has nothing to do with their color of the skin. It's just the fact of the context. Now, the same thing. If there are white neighborhoods in which people are going to, if they're get in trouble.
Yeah.
If there's, I know a young lady who had once, he's still sort of a friend, but she got arrested because her boyfriend was selling the same thing they were selling at CVS and Walgreens, but it was against the law.
Right.
And she got put into prison for 2 years. She was an Airbnb guest of mine for a few weeks. And her daughter was 7 years old when I met her daughter, and her daughter became a good friend of mine and still is. I call her Supergirl. And she's 7 now. But her mom was kidnapped from her because it's mandatory for her mom to be put in jail for 2 years.
What was she selling?
I don't know. It was some class. It was
some sort of narcotic.
Narcotic or something. Okay. I really don't know. I didn't get into details with her.
Okay.
I just play with her daughter a lot. We dance and go. But she was kidnapped, taken away from her daughter for 2 years and put in the jail because she wasn't doing anything immoral. Because if it was immoral, the CVS and Walgreens pharmaceuticals would be in trouble too.
Yeah, but immoral is
didn't have permission. She was just
exactly, and that makes it illegal.
She didn't have permission,
and that makes it illegal.
The government had to send the police to violate her individual rights, to kidnap her from her daughter, who's another, the relationship of her daughter at 7 years old for 2 years, her mom was kidnapped and put into jail. It's just the most disgusting thing. And it's the same thing as these bad people. If they get arrested and they get more years because they're doing drugs, being black than being white. The thing is, a good-looking person is not going to get in more trouble than the ugly person. An ugly, unattractive person statistically will get more time. Then also, if you go to court at 10 a.m., you are statistically better off to get less time than whether you go to court at 3 p.m. because at 3 p.m. the courts are pissed off, they're ready to get home, and they're tired, they're grumpy. But at 10 a.m., if you're lucky enough, you'll likely get off more lenient. Those are your statistics.
So to formulate my question, let me give you a premise, and then let me ask you a very clear and cut question. The premise is, and this is according to statistics by the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, that despite the fact that white people are more likely to be using marijuana and in possession of marijuana, black people are 3.73 times more likely than whites to be arrested for marijuana. So that is the premise. And with that being the premise, if you accept those numbers and that fact right there, do you think that anything is wrong with that? And if you think that something is wrong with that, what would you do as president to correct that?
I should say, hey, we need more white people to get in trouble to make the statistics easy? No, it's just so happens that group of people in the middle of downtown getting subsidies. There's a whole group of them, and they cause trouble. The police go up there, and it doesn't matter what their color of their skin is.
But in this case, it does matter because
it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, but and that's a good thing. It doesn't matter to me either.
These people being white or black. If the police are doing something wrong, then the police need to be brought up as an individual basis.
So, do you think that the police, to go back to my original,
racist policemen, but not as what the hint of this question is against black and whites. And I don't recognize race as that. If statistically speaking, when I asked for my gender, or not my gender, my race, I put my race as Kurios.
Yeah, but the thing is, that race does exist. And
it does exist.
Do you think
needs to be out of the government, because the government doesn't need to recognize race. They need to recognize citizens. The government doesn't care if you're white, black, blonde, girl. You want to have balls and say you're a woman, or if you want to have a vagina and say you're a man. The government doesn't care, and it doesn't need to take statistics. It needs to. The statistics is this bad person it doesn't matter what color is, did a bad thing, and he needs to be punished accordingly to justice
So
as the law states. And it doesn't matter what color of his skin is. Now, now these statistics, they seem to be used, and you can use the statistics to imply anything. These statistics are being used that the police are trying to imply that the police are racist, or acting on a racist basis, and that they also do the same thing with profiling. That profiling is racist. No, if you have a whole bunch of people wearing hoodies, walking around, slinging gang signs at each other, that's a good chance that that is a game that if you walk over in there, you're probably going to get beat up. Something bad could happen to you.
So you do not,
and it's violating the law.
Let me just ask you a question.
In guns and they're a group in the game, those police have a right to break them up because they don't have the right to carry guns in a game.
So let me just ask a question then. Do you or do you not think that the court system metes out justice, gives has a different application of justice between the races? You do not think, or do you think that black people are treated unjustly?
That will do that. I think I think the laws are that say like mandatory sentences. Like that. Oh, here's a good one. The Muse, that movie, The Muse, not The Muse, The Mule.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah. Oh no. That's the one. That's the one with Clint Eastwood, correct?
Yeah.
No. I have not seen that. I have not seen that yet.
It's a good movie. It's worth seeing, but except for the ending, he could have done such a wonderful movie. He just made it, but it was just a naturalistic movie. The guy just showed a movie, and it was it. Now, if he was still a Clint Eastwood from 20 years ago, and he actually wanted to make a good movie, at that very end, when it showed, I'm sorry for breaking this to you, at the very end of this movie, they have the court scene in which the man sacrifices himself and says, "Oh, I'm guilty." It's basically, they arrested a UPS truck driver and put him in prison for life.
Yeah.
A gardener who drove a truck, and they put him in prison for life. And that's the law. And and instead of Clint Eastwood making this movie at the very end of it and showing how evil and immoral that government and that policeman who did his law, he did the judge, he did his obligatory job, and arrested that man and took him away. He was a truck driver. Anybody could do that. It should be. The thing is, that's the entire thing of the drugs is immoral. He should have been trucking beer.
Yeah.
There's more violence and stuff. You asked me about opiates. What do the opiates do? They people fall asleep and they ruin their lives. Well,
it does a little bit more than that. Opiates kill people. Opiates are killing people.
They kill themselves. It's not my business for what people do. If they want to kill themselves, that's their choice.
So the whole aspect, the whole aspect of addiction, you're just going to oversee that then.
The addiction is, there's no such thing. You choose your actions. Now, if you have
let me give you an example.
Into the definition of addiction, of having an addiction, and alcohol is the one that causes the most harm. Now, if you want to make something illegal that causes harm, opiates are killing people. But how many accidents are caused by drunk drivers driving?
But listen,
reckless driving. Now, the thing that gives them is reckless driving is illegal. It doesn't matter why you're reckless driving.
Let me just ask you to hold on for a second, Kurios.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. You're saying that addiction is a matter of choice. Let me just give you an example. You go to the hospital, you get, for example, you've broken your leg, and it's a compound fracture, complicated procedure, so they got to knock you out. They knock you out, they do the operation, they fix your leg, they put you on OxyContin to regulate your pain when you wake up. Excuse me?
They wouldn't put me on it.
Well, they would put some people on. Some people would get on that.
I have wintergreen.
But listen, let me finish what I'm saying here. They would put you. They put the person on OxyContin. They give them too high of a dose, or for whatever reason, that person becomes addicted to OxyContin while they are a patient in the hospital. They come out of the hospital as an addict. Did that person choose that route?
Well, they don't come. You don't come out. You can choose to stop. When I mean, for example, I have been put in that exact situation. When I was in the Marine Corps, I blew my damn hands up.
Yeah.
I did one of those hey, what's this things, and seriously burned the skin off both my hands, and I had to go to the hospital. And it hurt like hell because burns.
Sure.
They just constantly burn, and they gave me morphine. I watched them, and they pulled the skin off of my hands, and I was watching them pulling the skin off of my hand. And they gave me morphine for a few days, and I even at that time, escaped from the hospital to do my own thing, go to the store and stuff. But I made it back, and they gave me these, they wanted to give me more morphine. And right. I told them no, because it disassociates you from reality. And even back then,
it does.
That disassociation was too much for me. And right. I don't really care much about pain. I can ignore the pain.
You and I are very similar. I've been through a whole series of operations myself and refused opiates. But that's you and I. I could have taken the oxycodone and continued on, and say, right. Hey, doctor, this is still painful, and it's forever painful, and going back there. But no, I did not walk out of there. I told him to stop giving it to me early. So if you
went out without that.
So then if you were president, you wouldn't put in. If you were president, then you wouldn't put in any special.
Yes,
you wouldn't do anything. You wouldn't do anything.
Have the power to do.
You wouldn't do.
Don't have.
U.S. president wouldn't do any kind of. You wouldn't do anything to fix the issue with opiates. You don't want to call it an addiction, but okay.
You wouldn't do rights to take whatever you want to your body. If you want to take opiates and risk it, I mean, it's a good viable drug.
Do you think that opiate?
Do you think in serious pain? You need to.
Do you think that this large amount of addicts has any effect on the economy? Wouldn't you, if it wasn't for a humanitarian purpose? I have no
sympathy for people who do that. No, I don't.
But again, listen to me, please. Listen to me for a second.
They're going to have in the economy on other people, but it's a violation of.
Kurios, listen to me for 1 second. Forget about the humanitarian thing. Forget about people making a choice and caring about them or not. My question is. Do you think that this high number of people who are addicts has any sort of effect on the economy and on society as a whole? And if you think that it has an effect, would you do anything about it as president?
No, I don't think it has any effect on society. Okay. No, yes, I would do something about it. I would make it easier access for the people. I would do my best to make it illegal for doctors to be in charge of people's lives. The government has stepped in and giving power to.
But you don't think that the high number of addicts has any effect on society at large?
Well, I suppose if you want to talk about it and get on Good Morning America and 60 Minutes and have something to talk about, but in my life, you want me to tell you in the last almost 45 years how many opiates that have caused me financial difficulties? So they had none. I have not met anyone who's caused me any financial damage. I've never actually even heard anybody complaining that, oh my God, that guy, he's killing himself on opiates. The world, our economy, my economy, my budget is doomed.
Okay.
So no, I can't think. I mean, I'm sure there's a situation in which maybe the head of Ford Industries decides to be on, gets on opiates, gets painkillers, and does something to the car industry,
right,
and destroys his business, and the Ford industry, closes down. Okay. That's his problem.
Let me ask.
That would cause an effect of the economy, and it shouldn't. And that's no business of the president.
Okay.
The president is the leader of the military, and why the leader of the military has anything to do with health and science and what doctors do is absurd. I would really have nothing, other than trying to let people be free to do what they want. If they want to take opiates and kill themselves and destroy their lives,
do you think something like the Center for Disease Control, which also is part of it, you would defund them and
I would defund them and get rid of them as quickly and as fast as possible, because there's no way that alphabet that alphabet bureaucracy should exist.
What kind of a person?
The entire world. It's ridiculous.
Okay. What kind of a person would you like to have as a vice president? Do you have a vice president candidate in mind?
I have not. I have given it some thought, and I have no idea. A woman vice president would be, would be my favorite, because I get along better with women than men, and men tend to be barbarians.
I can agree with you to a certain extent. I get along with women a lot better than I do with men. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I'm an engineer. I'm a logical engineer, and I don't know if you want to. A good vice president would be someone who can be asked a question and immediately go straight for where does it violate individual rights, because that's the very first question in politics that you need to know. And if you can understand and integrate where the individual rights are being violated, which I hope I've shown that I've been able to demonstrate.
Yeah.
In this interview.
You've definitely shown that you have a focus on individual rights. But my vice
president would have to understand and protect individual rights, because
I see
we've gone so far off the deep end. It's like who can jump off further off the cliff. You have Obama giving us the. First it was Nixon who nationalized the health insurance, the health care. It wasn't Obama. Obama just basically said, "Oh, look what Nixon did. I'm going to make it worse." And now we have, again, it's always two. You have one president doing some really bad stuff, and then you have the Republicans typically stepping in, going, "Yeah, we're going to really make it worse."
I see. Yeah.
The Democrats are bad, but the Republicans are going to just like, "Hey, watch this."
So you have a focus. You want to guard the individual rights, but do you think that individual rights have a higher place than the rights of society at large? Do you think those two
things are rights of society? The rights of society are individual rights. You cannot have rights. A society cannot have rights anything more than what its individual components have.
So in other words,
because you were a group. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, am I correct then if I paraphrase and say, do what you want and it doesn't matter how it affects everyone else? Or should it be do as you want as long as it's not hurting anyone else?
It's that second one.
Yeah. Okay.
On my business cards, I've given it around a few times when people come up to me. I hear it quite often. You're not supposed to do that. That's like I was almost considering changing that. You're not supposed to do that. You could do my middle name. I like to. My favorite song is actually from Madonna. Oh? Don't tell me.
Yes.
But.
Now, let me ask you, we have about 10 minutes left here before I got to cut this off.
Yeah,
but
this is going a lot longer than I expected.
No, but this is a lot of...
I'm enjoying the interview. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was really great talking to you.
Likewise. Let me ask you this. What kind of plans do you have when it comes to campaigning? How are you going to get, you're getting your voice out there now with this podcast episode. And thank you for letting me be the first one to where you announce your candidacy out to the world. But what are your plans going forward about getting your voice out there?
I'm going to do more podcasts. I'm doing a live Facebook right now. It's an hour
Facebook
and 20
Live?
minutes we've been talking about.
Yeah.
I've been walking back and forth, so I'm missing a few things. As I get downstairs, I have to pace. I cannot sit still. The thing is, people say, fat is stored energy. You ever try to lose it? Does that make does it really give you energy? No, fat is stored work. So you're storing work on you, and to get rid of that, you're going to have to work really, really hard.
There you go. That's a good way of looking at it.
Stored energy.
That's a good way of looking at it.
I have zero fat on me, and I can't sit still. I got so much energy. I'm easily 25%.
So you're not going to be. So you're not going to be one of those guys that gets on a campaign trail and you start wasting away physically. You've got the physical ability to keep it going strong. And
I know the pillars of health. I've been studying pillars of health for the last 10 years, especially since I, poisoned myself with alcohol up until about 2014 or so when I quit. I had gotten food poisoned or something around 2014 or 15. And I had to really learn a lot about health. And so I started to create the pillars of health as my standards and guidelines to be a healthy individual.
So you have a very good regime.
And so my plan is actually to live forever. We are at that point in time where our technology is where if I can make it to about 135 and for another 90 years or so, 80 years, 100 years, our technology is where I can live indefinitely. So if you take these stories that people have, that you live 80 years old, you can do what you want, and you have DNA, and you have your one lifetime, and you're dying. Well, as soon as you do whatever you want, you smoke, you get the flu, and you go to the hospital. I would never go to the hospital. You go to the hospital when you get a broken leg, not when you get a flu, a cold. If you can tell the difference, because you can't.
So you've got the energy, the stamina to make it through a meaningful campaign. And going forward, you're gonna be on some other podcasts coming up. I want to make sure you know that you are welcome to come back here again. I hope this isn't the last time that you're on my podcast, the Coming Home podcast with John Allen, and people can find.
Get along pretty well.
And people can find us. This will be a lasting episode that is up if they go in on johnallenpod.com. JOHNALANPOD.com, and they can check out this episode with you.
Make sure you put that on my website, on my Facebook, and I've also been tweeting. I've begun tweeting yesterday about that, and my tweet is Uncanny Kurios.
Can you spell that for people?
Yeah, Uncanny, like the Uncanny X-Men. Uncanny, UN, at sign for tweet, Uncanny UN. CANNY KURIOS, Uncanny Kurios.
Mm-hmm. And the Kurios is C.
No, K.
I'm sorry, K.
KURIOS.
KURIOS 1, the Roman numeral
The thing
I.
is, the reason why my Facebook and everything is Keenan is my name is Keenan Invictus Nichols right now. And I've been trying for months to get my name changed.
Name changed, like you said, yeah.
Yeah, my business has been Kurios Cabinets Kurios Cabinet for a year. From Circle Soleil, Kurios, Circle du Soleil, the Kurios, these people. Many years ago when they came out there, I just became freaking, I love this.
Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah.
Really.
That's
my name. I've kind of confiscated it from these wonderful people, and they haven't complained. I've met them. I've met a few of them a few times and talked to them, and they haven't really. I don't think they know that I'm actually changing my name yet. I've been down there and talked to them and been on their little things. When I started doing the tightrope, I did that tightrope thing. I learned how to do that tightrope and playing those crystal balls in just over 3 months. Okay. Now I can stand on that tightrope, and there's a video of me using both those crystal balls, dancing with them on the tightrope.
And that they can see on your Facebook, correct?
Yeah, I did that the other day when I was trying to do the video. And I learned how to do that in about 3 months, under 4 months. From picking up one of those crystal balls to balancing on my hand to standing on, to creating the 1 inch, 40-foot tightrope.
Okay.
I did that. But that's, from them. What was I going to say? Oh, well, that's where I got today. What happened was, I never really thought about changing my name to Kurios. I just loved it. Kurios Cabinet. They didn't completely see it. I've been selling steampunk things for years, but I got into labeling. I label everything. Even my label is labeled. Labeler. And I label my credit cards, and I have one of them household, and I picked Kurios on one of them for my business to buy inventory with. And I was last year, before I started painting my nails blue or anything, just me, and I'm buying inventory, and I hand my credit card to somebody, and the kid, 20 years old, he picks up the credit card, he looks at it, and he goes, "Are you Kurios?" And if anybody ever asks if you're a god, you say yes.
Oh, of course you say yes,
lie to them.
as one does.
And so a few months later, I started to change, and it got in my head. And I started thinking, yeah, I'm not even 45 yet, and I'm already fairly eccentric.
Hold up that thing again. Let me see how that looks again.
Oh, it's not mine.
Move it to the side. I can't see the whole thing. Move it to the other side.
Oh, you're over here.
There
Sorry,
you go.
I was pointing it on the Facebook thing.
That is so cool.
That's completely their stuff, and I'm just kind of stealing the name.
I see. Yeah.
It's just I'm Kurios I, and that's the one is
an I, a Roman numeral 1. Yeah.
I for one.
There you go.
I am going through the individuals, and we're finding it's good. I'm going to do my own census. We have our own 10-year census coming up there right now, and I know that there's over 250 million individuals.
Interesting.
So I've got a big group right now.
Let me ask you this. So the one Kurios I, or the I is basically going to be your new last name, or are you going to?
That's when I'm filling out the websites, because these guys doing the websites are making the last name having to have 2 letters.
Okay.
So now when I do a website, it's Kurios I, just because it fills out there. And then I got to send them an email. Hey, can I get 1 letter on my last name? It's only I.
Okay. Interesting.
And I like it. And I love it when my last name is first, because it reminds me of that Isaac Asimov book, I, Robot.
I, Robot, yes.
I love Isaac Asimov.
Great book. I love that book.
Isaac Asimov was my favorite.
I love that book. I was reading that stuff when I was like a 7-8-year-old kid. Yeah. Listen,
the laws of robotics.
Listen, Kurios, this has been very interesting. You have piqued my curiosity. I am definitely going to invite you back so we can talk some more. Well, I need to know more about what you're doing. I need another hour or two. So all the more reason for me to get you back on. So I
want my friends to vote for me. I don't want anyone else. I don't want anybody here. I just want good people to vote for me. If you're not a good person, if you want the mafia in blue, and you want socialism, you want statism, you like fascism, you like the government telling you what to do, don't vote for me. Go vote for the Republicans.
Straight.
Go for your group. Go for your Democrats. If you want the beautiful leader, and you want to look at me with those beautiful eyes, and go, oh, my president is going to be the greatest president in the world. I don't want a cat. I don't want a pet. I want a cat. I want my cat.
You got a ferret.
I do have a ferret. But I don't want a nation of pets like we are right now.
Straight from the mouth.
Toilet paper, and my president is taking me, and I got these nipples. And he's so happy. I'm a comfortable cat, and I'm going to purr in my president's arms.
Yeah.
No, I will drop you.
You want people
I don't want to be a pet owner. I don't want to be a president of pets in America.
Straight from the mouth of Kurios I. Listen, this has been a great episode. Very interesting. I think my listeners are going to love it. I want to tell you thank you. Thank you so much for doing this, and we will do this again.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
You have a wonderful weekend.
Take care.
I'll talk to you later on Facebook, man.
You got it. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye. Okay, people, that was the very interesting Kurios I. And this has been another episode of the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
I'm coming home.